From a young age, we're told to express our emotions and that it's okay not to be okay. That's why I went to therapy for my anger issues when I was 4. But when I was 12 and went back to therapy because I was severely depressed, in an attempt to help, my mom told me that I should only tell my close friends because parents didn't want to have a child over who they thought would harm themselves, even if I wasn't one of them. And while that hurt to hear, she was right, and I would learn that it was common not to tell people. That's because of the stigma around mental illness. The mental illness stigma is classified by 2 different types. First, there is the social stigma, which is the prejudiced attitudes conveyed through people that society fuels with myths about mental illness.
So when we're discussing things like mental health, it's important to be mindful of the way and that you address these things. When you go and say words like, oh, that person's psycho, or like they're a little bit crazy.
Second is the self-perceived stigma. This is an internalized stigma by the person enduring mental illness.
It invalidates these struggles and that everyone has with their mental health because of the fact that you're making it seem like it all boils down to this one point. It's also super negative, and honestly, we don't need that type of energy when we're talking about serious issues like this.
As long as I can remember, whenever I've been fidgety or hyper, friends and teachers told me that I was acting very ADD or ADHD. ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, is one of the most commonly diagnosed mental disorders in children. This is because whenever a child is fidgety or has trouble paying attention, like myself, people automatically assume that their child has ADHD and that it needs to go away. I see this stigma in my school when kids are tapping their feet or someone else tells them it's so ADHD. Or when I'm having trouble focusing and people tell me to just focus. But when I say it's my ADHD, they say, oh yeah, I have that too. What people don't understand is that while everyone might have a day where they're having trouble focusing, not everyone has ADHD. A good YouTube channel that explains ADHD is How to ADHD. Part of the reason for this stigma around mental illness is that it is glamorized by mass media like TV and movies. Anorexia isn't a disorder that a good old Danny Tanner pep talk can fix. It can stay with you forever and be very damaging. Depression isn't a pretty girl with her mascara running. It can be feeling nothing or not brushing your hair for a week, but it manifests itself differently in every person. Bipolar disorder can't be cured away with any amount of book throwing, football game betting, dance competition rehearsing, and Jennifer Lawrence loving like in Silver Linings Playbook. In real life, it's very hard to manage and can be detrimental. Self-harm isn't slitting your wrists in the bathtub like in 13 Reasons Why. It's scars that never go away and not being able to look at a razor the same way. So when people are forced to see the reality of mental illness, it's impossible to relate because of the glamorization that TV puts on it. Another reason the stigma of mental illness is so prevalent is because of the undereducation about mental illnesses.
So on the undereducation of mental health in schools, I believe that here at Penn, we're trying to take steps to raise awareness for mental health through initiatives such as advisory in the SEL lessons. However, we are still working on how we can adapt those to students' needs and desires. We've made an attempt in the health classes to educate students, which is of course a noble attempt. However, we are very much isolating our education of mental health to those particular areas rather than allowing it to be something that's part of the integral curriculum in our schools. For example, if you walk into your English class or your social studies class, the probability that your teacher's going to look at you and say, hey, how's your mental health doing, is very, very slim. And until we integrate that culture in Penn, we won't truly destigmatize mental health.
We work actively in order to create the conversation around it, because mental health is something that everybody has regardless of like whether or not they have an illness or a disorder.
This stigma doesn't have to exist. World Mental Health Day is Saturday, October 10th, 2020. Take this opportunity to help destigmatize mental illness by wearing green, posting positive messages.
Be open about the way that you talk about mental health. It is just like physical health, and everyone should be aware of the fact that there are ups and there are downs. And I think just being able to listen and talk openly about it helps to destigmatize it a lot.
And whether you personally are struggling with mental health, or you know somebody, or you just want to learn more about it, PATH is a great resource for you to just educate yourself, meet new people, and learn about mental health.
Or even donate to a charity like Child Mind Institute or the National Alliance Against Mental Illness. If you or a loved one is experiencing mental health issues, contact someone using the numbers below for free confidential help.